Now we'll discuss the setup for the equipment module. The setup area consists of 7 tabs under which general information about the equipment you want to maintain must be entered before you begin using the program. As we move into the setup area, please do bear in mind that what we are doing here is entering the basic information that the equipment maintenance module needs in order to schedule maintenance, track equipment, produce reports, and so forth. Once information is entered in a database application such as EZMWeb, it never needs to be entered again. So all you need to do is enter the information one time, and it will be available throughout the application for the creation of work orders and the other activity that the maintenance module needs to perform in order to function. The first data entry area we will examine is equipment names. I'll go into this area right now by clicking on the Equipment Names tab. What this area is for is to enter the general equipment names under which specific equipment items will be entered. For example, if your company has computers, each computer that needs maintenance would probably fall under the name computer. The same goes for air conditioning units, laser cutters, and so forth. Where this becomes very valuable, for example, is when you need to find all of your computers. Then you can simply search for all pieces of equipment with the name computer in the application, and EZMWeb will show you all of the individual computers that you have. So these are general equipment name categories under which specific items of equipment are entered, and these equipment name categories will allow you to sort and to find equipment by category. This system makes it very quick and easy to find groups of equipment. We will now click on the Classifications tab. Equipment classifications are another category that allows an operator to further categorize equipment based on location or other such criteria. For example, if your company has an office area, a factory area, a customer area, and so forth, then you would enter those classifications into this area. This is used later on when specific types of equipment and individual pieces of equipment are entered. So this can be a location point, or a category, or a tag that's put onto a particular piece of equipment. So if later on you want to find all of the equipment that you have in the factory, for example, you can simply search on all listings with factory as the classification and effectively filter down to your factory equipment. So essentially what equipment classification is a way to locate equipment, to tag it with its location so you can find individual pieces of equipment where they're located quickly and easily. Also, if you have outside customers, this can be very valuable. For example, if you service equipment for an outside customer at Mary's Corporation or Joe's Corporation, you can list their corporate name here under Equipment Classification, and then all the pieces of equipment that you maintain for Joe's Corporation will have a tag on it as Joe's Corporation. So when you need to find Joe's equipment, you can simply sort it by Joe's Corporation. Now let's discuss maintenance types. The Maintenance Types data area, which I've opened by clicking on the Maintenance Type tab, is the location where you fill in the various types of maintenance that are to be performed on the pieces of equipment for which you want to track maintenance. Examples of maintenance types are daily inspection, 30-day maintenance, 60-day maintenance, or some of the names you can see entered right here in the application. These can be as varied as your needs, and they'll be used later on in the application when work orders are created and maintenance is scheduled. The Materials tab leads us to a data entry area where an operator will enter all of the various materials that are actually used in the maintenance of equipment. The items that are displayed in this area are actually a subset of your entire inventory. That's because the items that are displayed here are all of the items in your inventory that you've designated as being materials that are used in equipment maintenance. I'll click on the Edit button next to an inventory item to show you some of the other data for an inventory item. This is the screen at which we will enter all of the information for this inventory item. For example, the material number, the cost of the item, the quantity that you have on hand, and so forth. We will not discuss these particular items here, as it is out of the scope of our current discussion about the equipment setup section. But all of the details about information for an inventory item will be covered later in the inventory section of this demonstration. I will now click Cancel to return to the materials listing in the maintenance setup area. Now that we're back at the list of materials, notice that there is a yellow New button on the right-hand side of the screen. Clicking on this button allows you to create a new material that is used for equipment maintenance. You will be taken to the material information screen at which you enter all of the necessary information about this new material. And when you are finished, you click on the Save button to save the material in the system. This item will now appear on the equipment materials list which we have seen, but it also goes directly into your inventory, which includes all of the materials and parts for equipment and vehicle maintenance. Now I'll click on the Parts tab. First, it's important to understand the difference between parts and materials in EZMWeb. The biggest distinction between parts and materials is that parts are basically permanent fixtures on the equipment which need to be checked regularly and replaced in the instance they break or need maintenance, while materials are things you use to do the actual maintenance, which are usually either discarded or frequently replaced at regularly scheduled intervals. Examples of parts are things like motors, fans, cables, shields, and so forth. These are meant to be permanently installed in a particular piece of equipment, but they still need to be checked and serviced at regular intervals and occasionally replaced. Because of this, it is very useful to keep an inventory of your parts which go into various pieces of equipment. If you have an inventory of motors for a particular type of equipment, it is important when, for example, you install a new motor that you deduct one from the number you have in inventory. And when you include these parts in your regularly scheduled maintenance, this allows you to keep track of the maintenance and inspections on them. The parts list, which we have browsed to by clicking on the Parts tab, lists all of the parts for equipment which you have entered into your inventory. Just as with materials, you can click on the Edit button corresponding with a part to view and change the information about this part. Later in the inventory section in this demo, we will discuss what exactly each of these data items means. Also, just like equipment materials, you can click on the yellow New button on the right-hand side of the screen to create a new equipment part to place into your inventory. So, as you can see, EZMWeb allows you to not only schedule recurring maintenance overall on a piece of equipment, but to schedule maintenance on individual parts of that equipment as you so desire. Clicking on the Operations tab takes us to an area that is central to the operation of EZMWeb and the procedures for work orders. Here at the list of operations, we can input all of the operations that can be performed on any piece of equipment. These operations can be shared throughout the application. Operations are entered here along with a complete description of how to perform them. These operations are used later on in the program. They are used during the creation of maintenance profiles, and they will ultimately be printed on the work orders to instruct people to whom that work was assigned exactly how to do that work. So, when you have a new operation that you'd like to list in the application, you start by first clicking the New button, typing the name of the operation in the Operation Name box, typing in the description of the operation in the Operation Description box, and then clicking on the Save button. The description of the operation can be as complete as you desire. Now, once this operation is entered into the application, it becomes available for inclusion in the maintenance profiles you will create. And when a work order is printed, whatever operations are listed on that work order will print out with the operation name and the description of that operation as you entered it. The next and final tab on the Setup menu for the Equipment Maintenance module of EZMWeb takes us to the heart of the EZMWeb system and our strategy for saving the operator and your company a great deal of time and trouble in setting up maintenance for the various pieces of equipment you have within your organization. Clicking on the Profiles tab takes us to the Maintenance Profile screen. And let me pause for a moment to explain in detail how the maintenance profiles work. A maintenance profile describes exactly what maintenance needs to be done for a particular category of equipment. For example, if you have elevators in your organization, each elevator of a certain kind requires the same preventive maintenance on the same recurring maintenance schedule, assuming, of course, it's the same kind of elevator. So what a maintenance profile allows the operator of EZMWeb to do is to create a profile, or a template if you will, of exactly what the recurring maintenances are that need to be done on an elevator of a particular kind. The maintenance profile keeps track of what needs to be done, how often it needs to be done, and what materials are used to do it. Once that maintenance profile is created for the first elevator of a particular kind, then every subsequent elevator of that same kind that you enter into the program can have the same maintenance schedule applied to it simply by selecting the maintenance profile for that type of elevator. In order to show you how you can set up your own maintenance profiles, we will go ahead and look at this profile since we're using it as an example. First, I'll click on the profile name itself. Doing so will display a description of this maintenance profile on the right side of the screen and show that included in this maintenance profile are two maintenance types, 30-day and annual. These maintenance types represent all of the recurring maintenance events that need to be done on this type of elevator. You can list here as many maintenance events as you wish. To change the frequency or description of a maintenance type, you would click on the Edit button next to that maintenance type. When each maintenance event is due, an alert will be issued to inform the user. And once a maintenance task has been completed, it will automatically reschedule itself a number of days in the future that you have already specified. So when a 30-day maintenance pops up, it will be assigned and completed. And then it reschedules the next 30-day maintenance 30 days from the time that the original 30-day maintenance was completed. Now, to change the materials used, the operations performed, and the parts serviced in a maintenance type, we would first click on the name of the maintenance type we want to modify. Let's take a look at the annual maintenance for an elevator. We can view materials, operations, and parts by clicking on the appropriate button. By doing this, we can see that this maintenance type includes one material, which is heavy oil. It also includes three operations which need to be performed: replace rollers, perform load test, and inspect support cables. It also includes one part, which is the support cable itself, since it is being inspected in this maintenance. All of the items under Materials, Parts, and Operations are things you would have already entered into Setup, and now they are ready to be selected from when you create a maintenance profile. Let's go through each of these individually. First, let's click on the Materials button to demonstrate how materials are added or changed in the maintenance type. As you can see, this maintenance type specifies that 3 ounces of heavy oil be used. You can change the quantity of this material by clicking on the Edit button for it. Then on the right side of the screen, enter the quantity you desire into the quantity box, then click on the Save button. Now the material is updated with the new amount. You can also add a material to a maintenance type. Just select the material number from the drop-down list here, enter the quantity you desire, and then click on the Save button. Next, we will click on Operations to demonstrate how you can add or change operations used in this maintenance type. As you can see, there are 3 operations specified here: replace rollers, perform load test, and inspect support cables. We can add a new operation to the list by selecting a sequence number, selecting an operation from the drop-down list, and then clicking on the Save button. You can also edit the description for an operation in your list by clicking on the Edit button for the operation, changing the description here in the right side of the screen as you wish, then clicking on the Save button. Lastly, let's click on Parts. Adding or editing parts in the maintenance type is very similar to how you do this with materials. Unlike with materials, however, if you have more than one of the same part on a piece of equipment, you can add this part to the maintenance type multiple times and give each instance a unique serial number so you can distinguish between them. So as you can see from this, once a maintenance profile is set up, it is very, very quick, a mouse click actually, to set up maintenance for any other similar machine in your company or in your customer's company. That completes our work in the setup area for equipment maintenance on EZMWeb. We will now demonstrate how to view all of the pieces of equipment which have been entered into EZMaintenanceWeb and how to enter new pieces of equipment for which you want to track and control maintenance. To go to the listing of all of your equipment, click on the little arrow on the Equipment Maintenance bar on the left-hand side of the screen, which expands this menu, and then click on Equipment to Maintain. Now that we have clicked on Equipment to Maintain, we are at a screen that lists all of the equipment entered into the application thus far. This screen also shows the equipment name, the profile, the customer, the internal control number, and the manufacturer's serial number for each piece of equipment listed. As you may recall from our previous explanation of classifications during the discussion of the setup area of the program, each piece of equipment can be assigned a classification. On the right-hand side of the screen is a drop-down box called Equipment Class Filter. You can select a classification from this drop-down list and click on the Go button beneath it, and the application will display all of the equipment and only the equipment that has been given the classification you selected from the drop-down list. For example, if we have a classification called Factory, which is assigned to all of the equipment in your factory and only that equipment, and we want to find all of those pieces of equipment in the factory, we select the Factory classification from the drop-down list and click on the Go button. As you can see, the equipment list is populated with all of the equipment in the factory area and only that equipment. We can do the same for classifications such as Office, Warehouse, and so forth, or any other classification area that you may have set up in EZMWeb, including locations for your clients, should you also have clients for whom you do maintenance. Now I will select Search All from the drop-down list and click on the Go button, which will bring back the entire list of equipment. You can also find a particular piece of equipment by equipment name, by internal control number, or by manufacturer serial number. On the right-hand side of the screen, just mark the small circle next to the search method you desire by clicking in it. Type the appropriate search key into the box below, and then click on the Go button. For example, if we have a piece of equipment which we have assigned the internal control number 605, we would select the internal control number option, type 605 into the box below, and then click on Go. As you can see, we have a forklift with that internal control number, so that is displayed on the screen. You can also search by barcode if the piece of equipment which you are looking for in the application has a barcode generated by EZMWeb that contains either the internal control number or the manufacturer's serial number. On the right-hand side of the screen in the box called Scan a Barcode, you would select whether you are searching by manufacturer's serial number or internal control number, place the cursor into the box below it, scan the barcode on the equipment, and then click on the Go button. Then the piece of equipment you're looking for will be displayed on the screen. Now we'll demonstrate how to create a new piece of equipment. At the lower right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a yellow New button. This will bring you to a screen at which you can enter all the information about this new piece of equipment. Here you can enter in the internal control number, the serial number, the equipment name, such as computer, printer, typewriter, and so forth, the brand, the model, the capacity, the classification, and where the equipment is located. You also enter in the initial date the equipment was set up, and all maintenance starts from this day forward. If you are tracking maintenance by the hours of use of a particular piece of equipment, the starting usage field will show whatever you have entered as the beginning number of hours on the machine at the time you entered it into the maintenance software. You can even choose whether you want to exclude Saturdays and Sundays from the list of days on which maintenance would fall for this equipment. And if you are servicing this equipment for an outside customer and you want their information to appear on the work order, you can put their name here as you've entered it into the application, and this will happen. You can also enter in the comments here for a specific piece of equipment if there is something to watch out for during maintenance, and it will show up on the work order for this piece of equipment only. You will also select the maintenance profile for the new piece of equipment you're entering here. For example, if we select printer maintenance, EZMWeb will automatically schedule all maintenance required for a printer as per the maintenance profile you previously entered for printers. As you can see here, when you're entering in a new piece of equipment, all you need do is simply select the maintenance profile you previously created for this type of equipment, and by selecting it, the maintenance profile will automatically schedule all of the appropriate maintenance events for that particular type of equipment, rather than you're having to specify all of the details of the maintenance for that equipment repeatedly. So this saves you a great deal of time and trouble in setting up equipment once you've created the basic maintenance profile for a specific type of equipment. At the bottom of this screen, you can also see 6 data fields that can be customized with whatever titles you would like. To do this, you would click on the Customize Captions button and then fill in the caption names as you wish them to appear. Then click on the Save button to finalize your changes. At the bottom of the Equipment Details screen for a piece of equipment that has already been entered, as opposed to a new piece of equipment, you'll see that there is also a Reproduce button that is very useful for efficiently entering many pieces of equipment that are similar. For example, if you have a number of forklifts to enter which are all of the same brand, model, classification, maintenance profile, and so forth, all you have to do is enter this information for one forklift, then click on the Reproduce button, and the application will create another piece of equipment with the same basic attributes. The only thing you have to specify, of course, is a unique internal control number and a unique manufacturer's serial number, so this new piece of equipment can be uniquely identified. You can enter a great deal of equipment this way simply and easily. If, for example, you have to enter 100 computers, you don't have to keep retyping in the same basic information about those computers. Simply click on the Reproduce button and EZMWeb will do that for you. I'm going to click on the Cancel button right now so that we can go into a piece of equipment that's already been completely filled out, just so you can see what it looks like. I'm going to click on the Edit button for that piece of equipment. Here you can see what it looks like when all the information has been filled out for a particular piece of equipment. Now I'll click on the Cancel button again because we don't want to save any changes I've done to this. Now we're back to the main screen for equipment entry or editing. Now we'll demonstrate how to enter usage logs for equipment in EZMWeb. First, we click on the equipment name for the piece of equipment for which we want to make a usage log entry. Then, to enter a new usage log, we click on the yellow New button near the right-hand corner of the screen. This brings us to the usage log screen where we can enter in the date of the entry and the current meter reading on the equipment or the usage since the last log entry. Once we are done entering this information as well as adding any comments to this log entry, we can click on the Save button to save the entry. Now that we have been returned to the list of log entries, you will see that there is an Edit button below the list. If you select an entry by marking the small circle that matches with it by clicking in it and then clicking on the Edit button, you will go to this screen where you can view the details of the log entry you selected and edit any comments that were left about this entry. Let's click on the Cancel button to return to the list again. You'll also see there's a Delete button here, and this allows you to delete any log entries you wish. This can be done by selecting the entry you wish to delete by marking the circle next to it and clicking on the Delete button. The application will then automatically correct the entry following the one that was deleted so that it includes the usage from the deleted entry and therefore all usage is accounted for. If you have a great number of pieces of equipment and wish to enter all updates, usage updates for that equipment at one time, rather than going into each piece of equipment individually, please contact the sales department at Linkit Software and ask them about the Data Import module. One of the most important issues in maintaining and controlling maintenance is being able to quickly and easily ascertain what maintenance is due today and what maintenance is overdue. Also, one should be able to pull a complete schedule of maintenance for any time period. This week, today, this month, this year, and so forth. Clicking on Maintenance Due under the Equipment Maintenance tab brings us to a screen where all of that can be done. As you can see, we can look at the maintenance due schedules by equipment, by date, or by hours of usage. We'll begin by looking at a maintenance schedule by equipment. When you click on Maintenance Due, by default it brings us to the screen at which we can view maintenance due by equipment. Otherwise, we have to click on the By Equipment tab. What this screen allows the maintenance supervisor or an operator of Easy Maintenance to do is to check on equipment that is scheduled or set up to be maintained and look at the next due date. So by looking at this screen, an operator can find a specific piece of equipment and find out what the status of that piece of equipment is, or look at the due dates and see what equipment was due to be maintained and what equipment is overdue. To view the scheduled maintenance for a particular piece of equipment, look down at the list shown here. Find the piece of equipment whose scheduled maintenance you would like to view and click on the equipment name. We can now see down here what was supposed to have been done and when it was supposed to have been done, or when something is scheduled to be done. The old due dates that are here are just for demonstration purposes and show how scheduled maintenance appears when it has not yet been completed. As you can see, the due date will appear in a red font to indicate that this maintenance is overdue. You can also see here that some of these scheduled maintenance events have open work orders. These represent scheduled maintenance events for which work orders have been opened but have not actually been completed. Now, before we get to that, you can see there's a locate function on the right-hand side of the screen. As described earlier, you can use this to locate work orders by their number, locate equipment by serial number and internal control number, and look for overdue maintenance, maintenance that is due today, or display all maintenance. Again, below that, you can also search for a piece of equipment by swiping the barcode on the equipment through a barcode scanner. Now, if an operator of Easy Maintenance looks at a particular piece of equipment and determines that one of the work orders should be completed or issued for this particular maintenance event, they can mark this circle next to the piece of equipment and then click on Create or Edit Work Order, and a work order will be produced for this maintenance event. Later, we will discuss in detail how to create a work order and how to work within the work order screen that this button takes you to. So, these things are totally under the operator's control here when they look at maintenance due by equipment and find maintenance events that are overdue. You'll also see a button here for a new unscheduled work order. This is a work order for maintenance or repair on a piece of equipment which is essentially emergency maintenance. It's not routine. In other words, something is broken, blown up, gone bad, etc. So you can choose to make a new unscheduled work order and choose a piece of equipment for which that unscheduled work order is created. And when that unscheduled work order is closed, it goes directly into the history of that piece of equipment, which we will discuss in detail a bit later. A bit further on, in fact, just a few minutes from now, we will actually pull up a work order, create it, and show you how that is done. Also from here, a report can be printed on maintenance which has to be done, and if you click on the Calendar tab, that will take you to a calendar that will let you view all of the maintenance scheduled to be due on a particular day. You can also print a work order by clicking in the small circle next to the work order and clicking on the Print button. We will now click on the By Date tab, which will take us to a screen showing us all maintenance due by date. Here we see what are the next due dates for various maintenance events on all kinds of different pieces of equipment which have been entered into the system. Now, before we get to that, you can see there's a locate function on the right-hand side of the screen. As described earlier, you can use this to locate work orders by their number, locate equipment by serial number and internal control number, and look for overdue maintenance, maintenance that is due today, or display all maintenance. Again, below that, you can also search for a piece of equipment by swiping the barcode on the equipment through a barcode scanner. The key item on this screen is the Next Due Date column. This column shows us the oldest maintenance event which has not yet been completed, and by scrolling down we can find the most recent date that is due. So a maintenance director or maintenance supervisor can simply look at the screen and see any overdue maintenance, of which there's quite a few here, and any work order which has been opened but not yet completed. So the maintenance is still showing as due because the work in it has not been completed, or it will show maintenance that is due for which a work order has not been opened. So if a maintenance manager or someone using Easy Maintenance looks at this screen and determines that this maintenance event here should have a work order produced for it, they simply mark the small circle next to the scheduled maintenance and click on the Create Edit Work Order button. The last option of viewing maintenance, which we have not yet discussed, is by usage. Clicking on the By Usage tab will bring up a screen very similar to the last two that you have seen, with the only difference being that the maintenance events are organized based on hours of use remaining before the next maintenance is due. All other functionality remains the same as what has already been demonstrated. Easy Maintenance Web also has the capability to print barcodes containing internal control numbers or manufacturer serial numbers, which can be placed through barcodes on pieces of equipment which you've entered into EZMWeb. To do this, first go into the list of equipment to maintain, which is under the Equipment Maintenance tab. At the bottom of the list of equipment to maintain, you'll see two buttons, namely Print All and Print Selected. The Print All button allows you to print a barcode for every piece of equipment you've entered into the application. In contrast, the Print Selected button will print barcodes for only the pieces of equipment you've selected by checking in the box on the rightmost column on the equipment list. To demonstrate this, let's go ahead and select a few pieces of equipment by clicking in the checkboxes corresponding with them. Then we'll click on the Print Selected button. After you have clicked on the Print Selected button or the Print All button, you will be prompted to select whether you want the barcodes to contain internal control numbers or manufacturer's serial numbers for the equipment you selected. Click in the small circle next to the option you desire. After you have selected your printer settings, the desired barcodes will print out and are ready to be placed on equipment for easy scanning into EZMWeb in the future. We will now demonstrate how to create a work order. First, select a scheduled maintenance event by marking the small circle next to it through clicking in the circle, and then click the Create Edit Work Order button. Clicking on that button will bring us to this screen, namely the work order screen, and will create a work order for this maintenance event, which we have decided we need to produce a work order for so it can go into the system and the maintenance work can be done. As you can see, some parts of the work order, such as the equipment name, the internal control number, the maintenance profile for the equipment, and the maintenance type, are automatically filled in. The application also allows the supervisor, or whoever is closing the work order, to put in notes as to what was done, documenting any variances, for example, or to put in exceptions, namely things that were called for in the work order but were not completed. To add notes or exceptions to the work order, simply click on the appropriate box and add the notes you wish. The upper right-hand corner of the work order also has a section for customer information, which will show all customer information if this piece of equipment is being serviced for an outside customer. As you can see as well, there is an Approved By box which is filled in with the name of the supervisor who approves this work order. Only a supervisor with the appropriate password can approve work orders. From this screen, you can also assign this specific work order to an employee or maintenance staff member. And you can also close the work order from this screen. When a work order is printed, we'll get to how to print them in just a moment, and given to somebody to perform, that person does the work and turns the work order back in or makes notes in the computer, depending on how your company is set up. Once a supervisor has determined that the work has been completed, the supervisor can enter the total labor hours, the value of the labor that was required to perform this maintenance, the materials cost, and the equipment downtime, and then can close the work order. If you're using the inventory section of EZMWeb, the materials cost will compute automatically. And when the work order is closed, all this information goes to and appears in the maintenance history of this piece of equipment. Now, I'll click on the Next button at the bottom of the work order to proceed to the next screen at which you can change the parts, materials, and operations needed in this work order. As you can see, a supervisor can look at the materials required, the operations to be performed, and the specific parts to be maintained to make sure that they are correct. If changes need to be made, these items can be changed, added to, or deleted here at the bottom of the work order. When the supervisor is satisfied that all of this information is correct, the work order can be printed, and every operation that is required to perform this maintenance, the parts to be serviced, and all the materials required will print out on the work order with complete detail of exactly what to do in sequence to perform the maintenance as called for in this work order. Let's now save this work order, and I'll demonstrate how to create an unscheduled work order. As you know, there are many instances in which equipment breaks down and needs non-routine maintenance that is not in the regular maintenance schedule. When this happens, you'll most likely need to use materials, service parts, and perform operations that are different from those chosen in your regularly scheduled maintenance. EZMWeb has capabilities that allow you to create work orders called unscheduled work orders for such maintenance events and store them in the history for that particular piece of equipment once they have been completed. To create an unscheduled work order, locate the yellow Unscheduled Work Order button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and click on it. After clicking this, you will be taken to the Unscheduled Work Order screen. This screen is similar to the regular work order screen, but is slightly different. First, select the internal control number of the piece of equipment which is broken down, and for which you must create this unscheduled work order. This will automatically fill in information about the piece of equipment. Then you'll also have to choose the type of maintenance you want to do on this piece of equipment. Unlike with a regularly scheduled work order, this information is not automatically filled in, and this gives you the flexibility to specify exactly what you need for this non-routine or emergency maintenance. Since in this case we want to choose the exact materials, parts to service, and operations needed for this unscheduled maintenance, we'll choose Unscheduled Repair for both the maintenance profile and the maintenance type, which gives us a blank slate on which we can add whatever materials, parts, and operations we need. After choosing Unscheduled Repair, we'll click on the Next button. Now we can add any materials, parts, and operations here at the bottom of the work order. When we are finished with this and changing any other information on the work order we desire, we will click on the Save button to save the work order. So that's how creating a work order is done. Now to close a work order, you would simply click on the Maintenance Due, find the work order you'd like to close, click the Closed checkbox at the upper left-hand corner of the work order, and click the Save button. Again, once the work order is closed, it disappears from the list of maintenance to be performed because the maintenance has been completed. The closed work order information will then appear in the maintenance history for this piece of equipment. Now, I'll go ahead and exit from here and we'll move to another area.